Jacob McAllister dropped to his knees in the frozen hay, his hands shaking so hard he could barely pull back the blood-stained blanket. 3 babies. Not 1. 3. Their cries were weak, barely whispers against the howling wind outside. The woman who'd left them was gone, her footprints already buried under fresh snow. The note in his trembling fingers said only, "Their mother is dead. Please don't let them die too." 10 years ago, Jacob buried his wife and daughter. Tonight, God was either giving him a second chance or the cruelest joke of his life. If you want to see how this broken man's life changes forever, subscribe to my channel and stay until the end. Comment your city below so I can see how far this story travels. Wyoming Territory, December 24th, 1887. The first cry stopped Jacob McAllister cold. He stood in the barn doorway, lantern-raised snow swirling around his boots. 44 years old. 10 years alone. And that sound, that thin, desperate wail, it cut through him like a bullet he'd been waiting for. What in God's name? He moved forward, his heart slamming against his ribs. The cry came from the back stall where he kept the fresh hay for winter. Another cry joined the first, then a third. 3 voices, 3 babies screaming against the cold. Jacob's lantern shook so hard the shadows danced wild across the walls. He reached the stall and looked down. A wooden crate, lined with a woman's coat wool and worn thin. Inside, 3 infants tangled together, their faces red and raw from crying. Lord have mercy. He dropped to his knees, his breath coming fast and ragged. His hands hovered over them, afraid to touch, afraid this was some fever dream. But they were real. So real their cries filled his ears and wouldn't stop. A piece of paper was tucked beneath the coat. Jacob grabbed it with trembling fingers. Their mother died giving birth. I couldn't save her. I can't keep them. Please don't let them die too. Their names are Hope, Faith, and Grace. God forgive me for leaving them. No signature, no name, just those desperate words in shaky handwriting. Jacob read it twice, 3 times. The words blurred. Who left you here? He whispered to the babies. Who would? But he knew. He knew exactly what desperation looked like. He'd worn it himself for 10 long years. The smallest one, the one in the middle, her cry was getting weaker. Jacob touched her cheek, ice cold. No. No, no, no. He didn't think. He stripped off his coat and wrapped it around the crate. Then he lifted all 3, crate and all, and pressed them against his chest. Stay with me, you hear? Stay with me. He ran. The cabin was cold. Fire burned low to embers. Jacob kicked the door shut behind him and set the crate on the table. Come on. Come on. He threw wood on the fire, his movements frantic. The flames caught, grew, but not fast enough. The smallest baby had stopped crying. Don't you do this. Jacob lifted her out, his hands spanning her entire body. She was so small, smaller than a loaf of bread. Her lips were turning blue. Don't you dare. He opened his shirt and pressed her against his bare chest, wrapping his arms around her. I got you. You're gonna be warm now. I got you. The other 2 were still crying, but weaker now. Jacob stood there, 1 baby against his skin, 2 more in the crate, and felt the same helpless terror he'd felt 10 years ago. Sarah's face, her screams, the blood that wouldn't stop. Not again, he said through clenched teeth. Not again. The baby against his chest stirred, made a small sound. Her tiny hand curled against his skin. Jacob held his breath. She was still alive, barely, but alive. That's it. That's right. You fight. He grabbed a blanket from his bed and wrapped her tight, then reached for the next one. Same thing, skin to skin. Body heat, the only warmth he had to give. For the next hour, Jacob McAllister did nothing but hold babies against his chest, 1 at a time, rotating them like he was thawing frozen calves in spring. And slowly, so slowly, their cries grew stronger. Dawn crept gray through the frosted windows. Jacob sat in his chair, all three babies in his lap, wrapped in every blanket he owned. His shirt was still open, their small bodies pressed close to his warmth. He hadn't slept, hadn't moved, hadn't done anything but listen to them breathe. "Hope, faith, and grace," he said quietly, testing the names. "That what she called you?" The one on his left opened her eyes. Dark eyes, almost black, staring up at him with an intensity that made his chest hurt. "Your hope, I reckon. Smallest but strongest." The one in the middle squirmed, her face scrunching like she was working up to another cry. "And your faith. Got opinions already." The third one slept peacefully, her breathing even and calm. Grace, the quiet one. Jacob looked down at them, these three lives that had appeared in his barn, like some kind of miracle or curse. He didn't know which yet. "I don't know what to do with you," he admitted. "I don't know the first thing about babies. Lost my own daughter before she took her first breath." The words came out rough, scraped from somewhere deep. "But I ain't gonna let you die. Not tonight. Not any night." Hope's tiny hand found his finger and gripped it tight. Jacob felt something crack inside his chest. Something he'd kept walled up for 10 years. "All right then," he whispered. "All right." The knock came mid-morning. Jacob had just figured out how to feed them, dipping clean cloth in warmed milk, letting them suck on it one at a time. Messy, slow, but it worked. The knock made him freeze. No one came to his cabin. Ever. He'd made sure of that. "Jacob McAllister." A woman's voice, sharp and demanding. Jacob set Faith back in the crate, gentle as he could, and moved to the door. Clara Whitmore stood on his porch, snow dusting her dark hair, her breath fogging in the cold. Widow woman from town. Ran the dress shop, 2 boys of her own. "Mrs. Whitmore." "Don't you?" "Mrs. Whitmore, me." She pushed past him into the cabin. "Silas Brennan saw tracks leading to your barn. Fresh tracks that stopped and didn't leave. Said it looked like someone was carrying something. Then I heard you've been to the general store at midnight buying milk and cloth and—" She stopped, stared at the table, at the crate, at the 3 babies. "Mother of God. It ain't what you think." "What I think," Clara whirled on him. "What I think is, there are 3 newborn babies in your cabin, Jacob McAllister. 3. And you're standing there looking like you haven't slept in a week." "Found them last night. In my barn. Found them. Someone left them. Woman died giving birth near as I can figure. There was a note." Jacob pulled the paper from his pocket. Clara snatched it, read it, and her face went pale. "Good Lord!" She looked at the babies, then at him. "You kept them alive through the night by yourself." "Didn't have much choice." Clara moved to the crate, her hands already reaching for the nearest baby. Faith. She lifted her with practiced ease, checking her over. "This one's cold. They all need proper swaddling. And milk from a cloth won't work much longer. You need bottles, proper ones." "I don't have—" "I know what you don't have." Clara was already moving, pulling blankets tighter, adjusting the crate's position near the fire. "What you have is 3 babies who'll die without help." Jacob stood frozen, watching her work. "Why are you here, Mrs. Whitmore?" She paused. Faith cradled against her shoulder. "Because I heard a man who hasn't spoken to anyone in 10 years went to the store at midnight looking like death warmed over. And I wanted to know why." "Now you know?" "Now I know." She met his eyes. "You planning to keep them?" The question hit like a fist. I ain't thought that far." "You better start thinking." Clara's voice softened, just slightly. "These are babies, Mr. McAllister, not stray calves. The town's gonna want answers. The law's gonna want answers. And you're gonna need help whether you like it or not." Jacob looked at the 3 lives depending on him. Hope, faith, and grace. Names given by someone who'd already given up. I ain't giving them to an orphanage. The words came out before he could stop them. Hard, certain, surprising even himself. Clara studied him for a long moment. Then you better let me help you, because a man alone can't raise 3 babies, not even a man as stubborn as you. Chud. By afternoon, Jacob's cabin looked like a battlefield. Clara had sent her boys to town for supplies. They'd returned with bottles, cloth diapers, a second-hand cradle, and more milk than Jacob had seen in months. You hold her like this, Clara demonstrated with grace. Support the head. Always support the head. I know how to hold a baby. Do you? Clara raised an eyebrow. Because 10 minutes ago, you were holding Faith like she was a sack of grain. Jacob grunted, but adjusted his grip on Hope. The baby looked up at him with those dark, knowing eyes, like she could see right through to his soul. She keeps staring at me. Babies stare. It's what they do. Clara was changing Grace's diaper, her movements quick and efficient. You'll get used to it. Don't know if I will. Clara paused, something shifting in her expression. Why'd you keep them, Jacob? Really? He didn't answer right away. Couldn't. 10 years ago, he finally said, I buried my wife and my daughter on the same day, Sarah and Emily. The birth went wrong. Doc couldn't stop the bleeding. Emily never took a breath. Clara was quiet. I've been alone ever since. Figured that was how it should be, how it had to be. Jacob looked down at Hope, still watching him. Then I walk into my barn on Christmas Eve and find these 3, dying, cold, left by someone who was out of choices. He swallowed hard. Couldn't leave them. Couldn't let them die in the same place I was planning to spend another lonely Christmas. That ain't right. That ain't how it should be. Clara set Grace down gently and turned to face him. You think this is fate, God's plan? Don't know about God's plan. Don't know about fate. Jacob's jaw tightened. All I know is they're here. I'm here. And as long as I'm breathing, they're gonna be safe. Clara Whitmore looked at him for a long moment. Then she nodded. All right then, let's keep them alive. Night fell hard and cold. Jacob sat in his chair, Hope and Faith in his arms, Grace in the cradle Clara had set up by the fire. Clara had finally gone home, promising to return first thing. The cabin was quiet, except for the crackle of flames and the soft sounds of sleeping babies. Your mama's gone, Jacob said softly to the twins in his arms. Don't know who she was, don't know why she came here, but she gave you names before she died. Hope, Faith, and Grace. Reckon she wanted you to have what she couldn't. Hope stirred her tiny fingers, flexing against his chest. I ain't much. Got a cabin, some land, and a whole lot of nothing else. But I got 2 hands and a heart that still works even if I tried to shut it down for 10 years. Faith made a small sound like she was agreeing. So here's what's gonna happen. I'm gonna learn how to do this. Gonna make mistakes. Probably a lot of them. But I ain't gonna quit. Not on you. Not ever. He said the words like a vow, like a promise to the dead mother and the God he wasn't sure he believed in anymore. You're mine now, all 3 of you, and ain't nobody gonna take you from me. Christmas morning dawned bright and bitter cold. Jacob woke to 3 hungry cries and Clara Whitmore pounding on his door. Up, get up! We got problems! He stumbled to the door, Grace against his shoulder, and found Clara's face tight with worry. What? Sheriff Barrett's coming. Someone in town told him about the babies. He's got Judge Hawthorne with him. Jacob's blood went cold. Hawthorne? The very same. Clara pushed inside, already reaching for Grace. The judge who's been trying to buy your land for 2 years, the one you told to go to hell in front of the whole town. He ain't getting my land. It ain't your land I'm worried about. Clara met his eyes. He's coming for the babies, Jacob. Says abandoned children are wards of the territory. Says a man alone has no legal right to keep them. Jacob looked at Hope and Faith, still in the crate, waking now and starting to fuss. Over my dead body. That can be arranged, Clara said grimly. Hawthorne's been waiting for a chance to break you. You just handed him 3 of them. The sound of horses outside. Multiple horses. Jacob moved to the window. 4 riders. Sheriff Tom Barrett in front, his face grim. Judge Cornelius Hawthorne beside him. Silver hair and a smile like a rattlesnake. 2 more men behind them. Deputies. Clara, take the babies to the back room. Jacob, do it, now. She gathered them all 3 and disappeared into the small bedroom. Jacob grabbed his rifle from above the door and stepped onto the porch. That's close enough. Sheriff Barrett raised his hands. Now, Jacob, no need for that. Seems like there is, Tom. 4 armed men riding up to my cabin on Christmas morning. That ain't a social call. Judge Hawthorne urged his horse forward, that smile never wavering. Mr. McAllister, we're here on official business. Reports of abandoned children. Surely you understand we need to investigate. I understand you've been trying to steal my land for 2 years. Now you got a new angle. This isn't about land. Hawthorne's eyes glittered. This is about 3 helpless babies in the care of a man who hasn't spoken to another human being in a decade. A man with no wife, no family, and no qualifications to raise children. I kept them alive when they were dying. That's qualification enough. The law disagrees. Hawthorne pulled a paper from his coat. I have an order here to remand the children to territorial custody pending proper placement. They'll be sent to the orphanage in Helena, where they can be adopted by suitable families. Jacob's finger found the trigger. You ain't taking them. Jacob. Sheriff Barrett's voice was tight. Put the rifle down. We can talk about this. Nothing to talk about. Those babies were left to me. I'm keeping them. Left to you? Hawthorne laughed. By whom? A ghost. There's no proof anyone intended you to have them. They were abandoned. That makes them wards of the territory. That makes them mine to place. They were left in my barn, with a note asking me to save them. That's proof enough. A note. Hawthorne's smile widened. May I see this note? Jacob hesitated. The note was inside. With Clara. With the babies. I didn't think so. Hawthorne waved to his deputies. Search the cabin. Find the children. You set 1 foot on my property, and I'll drop you where you stand. The deputies stopped. Even Hawthorne's smile flickered. Sheriff Barrett dismounted slowly. Jacob, listen to me. I don't want trouble. Neither do you. But the law is the law. If you've got abandoned babies in there, we need to... What you need to do is leave. I can't do that. Then we got a problem. The standoff stretched. 5 men, 1 cabin, 3 babies inside who'd already lost their mother. Then a voice came from behind Jacob. Perhaps I can help clarify things. Clara Whitmore stepped onto the porch, hope in her arms. Her chin was high, her eyes blazing. Mrs. Whitmore? Hawthorne's voice dripped false concern. Surely you're not involved in this unfortunate situation. I'm very involved, Judge. I've been helping Mr. McAllister care for these children since he found them. She held Hope up, letting them see her small face. This is Hope. She's 3 days old. She nearly died from cold last night until Jacob warmed her against his own skin for 3 hours straight. Sheriff Barrett's face shifted. Her sisters are inside. Faith and Grace. Triplets born to a woman who died in the birth. The note Jacob mentioned, I've seen it. It begs whoever finds these babies to love them. That doesn't change the law, Hawthorne said, but his smile was gone now. No, but it changes what kind of man would try to tear them away on Christmas morning. Clara's voice rose, carrying in the cold air. These babies have a home, a man willing to die to protect them, and you want to send them to an orphanage. Separate them, pass them off to strangers. The law. Damn your law. Clara stepped forward, Hope still in her arms. I'm a widow judge. I know what it is to lose everything and keep going. Jacob McAllister lost his wife and daughter 10 years ago. He's been dead inside ever since. But these babies, they brought him back. I saw it with my own eyes. She looked at the sheriff. Tom, you've known Jacob for 20 years. You know what kind of man he is. Is he the kind to hurt children, to neglect them? Barrett was quiet for a long moment. Then he shook his head. No, he ain't. Then give him a chance. Clara's voice softened. Let him prove he can do this. Set a hearing, a proper one, where he can make his case. But don't take these babies away on Christmas morning. That ain't justice. That's cruelty. The silence stretched. Hawthorne's face was dark with fury. Sheriff, I gave you an order. You gave me a suggestion, Judge. You don't run my office. Barrett looked at Jacob, at Clara, at the baby in her arms. I'm going to recommend a hearing. Territorial court. Let a real judge decide. I am a real judge. You're a judge with a grudge and a land dispute. That ain't impartial. Barrett mounted his horse. Jacob, you got till the new year. Get your affairs in order. Find people to speak for you. Prove you can raise these children. And if I can't prove it? Barrett's face was grim. Then the territory takes them. That's the law. He turned his horse and rode away. Hawthorne lingered, his eyes locked on Jacob. This isn't over, McAllister. Those babies will be mine to place. And when they are, I'll make sure they go somewhere you'll never find them. Get off my land. Hawthorne smiled that rattlesnake smile. Enjoy your week, Jacob. It's all you have left. He rode away, his deputies following. Jacob stood on the porch, rifle still in hand, watching until they disappeared over the hill. Then his legs gave out. He sat down hard on the frozen boards, his breath coming in ragged gasps. Clara knelt beside him. Hope still cradled safe. Jacob, I can't lose them. His voice cracked. Clara, I can't. Not again. Not them too. You won't. She put her free hand on his arm. We won't let that happen. How you heard him. The law's on his side. The law can be changed. People can be convinced. Clara's jaw set. Hawthorne thinks he's gonna win because he always wins, but he's never gone up against a man with nothing left to lose. Jacob looked at her, at Hope watching him with those dark, knowing eyes. I got everything to lose now, he said quietly. Everything that matters. Then fight for it. Clara helped him to his feet. 1 week. Let's make it count. Inside, Faith and Grace started crying, their voices rising in hungry complaint. Jacob looked at the cabin, at the 3 lives waiting for him, at the woman standing beside him in the cold. All right, he said. Let's go feed my daughters. The word felt strange on his tongue. Daughters, but also right. More right than anything had felt in 10 years. He walked inside, leaving the cold behind, walking toward the warmth and the noise and the impossible hope of Christmas morning. The next 3 days blurred together in a haze of crying, feeding, and sleepless nights. Jacob learned things no man should have to learn alone. How to change 3 diapers in rotation. How to warm bottles without burning the milk. How to tell which cry meant hunger and which meant something else entirely. You're holding Faith wrong again. Clara's voice cut through his exhaustion. She'd been at his cabin every day since Christmas, arriving at dawn, leaving after dark. She ain't complaining. She will be when her neck cramps up. Clara adjusted his arms, her hands warm against his. Like this. Support here. Jacob shifted Faith carefully. The baby settled her, fussing, quieting. How do you know all this? 2 boys, remember, plus I helped my sister with her 4. Clara checked on Hope in the cradle. Babies aren't complicated. They need food, warmth, clean bottoms, and someone to hold them. That's it. Sounds simple when you say it. It is simple. Just not easy. She smiled, but it faded quick. We need to talk about the hearing. Jacob's jaw tightened. What about it? You need people to speak for you. Character witnesses. People who'll tell the judge you're fit to raise these girls. Ain't got people. You know that. You've got me. One widow woman against Judge Hawthorne, that ain't enough. Clara straightened fire in her eyes. Then we find more. Martha Chen at the general store. She's known you 20 years. Doc Patterson delivered Emily. He knows what you went through. Jacob flinched at his daughter's name, still hurt even after all this time. Doc won't speak against Hawthorne. Nobody will. The judge owns half this town. He doesn't own everyone. Clara picked up Grace, who was starting to squirm. There's Reverend Michaels, the Hendersons, old Pete at the livery. Pete's half-deaf and the Hendersons owe Hawthorne money. Jacob shook his head. Face it, Clara. I'm fighting this alone. No. Her voice was sharp. You're not. Stop saying that. Why do you care so much? The question hung between them. Clara looked down at Grace, her expression softening. Because I know what it's like to lose everything. My husband died in the mine collapse 3 years ago. Left me with 2 boys and nothing else. This town wanted to send my children to relatives back east. Said a widow couldn't raise sons alone. What did you do? I fought, tooth and nail. Took every job I could find. Proved them wrong. She met his eyes. You can do the same, but you have to let people help you. Jacob looked at Faith sleeping now in his arms. So small, so trusting. I ain't good at that. I noticed. Clara's voice softened. But these babies don't care about your pride, Jacob. They need you alive and fighting, not stubborn and alone. Before he could answer, hoofbeats sounded outside. Clara moved to the window. It's Silas Brennan, the deputy. The young one. The one who told me about the tracks. He's been asking around about you. Quietly. Jacob set Faith in the cradle and grabbed his rifle. Leave that, Clara said. Silas isn't the enemy. Everyone's the enemy until I know different. He opened the door. Silas Brennan sat on his horse looking nervous as a long-tailed cat in a room full of rocking chairs. Mr. McAllister, sir? Deputy? I ain't here official. Silas dismounted, keeping his hands visible. I came to warn you. Warn me about what? Judge Hawthorne. He's been talking to folks in town, spreading stories. Jacob's grip tightened on the rifle. What kind of stories? Silas looked uncomfortable. That you're unfit. That you went crazy after your wife died. That you talk to yourself and don't bathe and... He trailed off. And what? That you threatened to shoot him on Christmas morning, in front of witnesses. I told him to get off my land. That ain't a threat. That ain't how he's telling it. Silas glanced at Clara, then back to Jacob. He's saying you're dangerous, unstable, that those babies aren't safe with you. Clara stepped onto the porch. That's a lie. I know it is, ma'am, but folks are believing it. Hawthorne's got a way of making people see what he wants them to see. Jacob felt the ground shifting under his feet. What else? He's bringing in a doctor from Helena, some fancy specialist. Says he's going to have you examined before the hearing. Prove you're not right in the head. He can't do that. He can if the sheriff agrees. And Sheriff Barrett? Silas looked away. He owes Hawthorne. Everyone does. Clara grabbed Jacob's arm. There has to be something we can do. That's why I'm here. Silas reached into his saddlebag and pulled out a folded paper. I found this in the courthouse records. The land dispute Hawthorne's got against you. It ain't as solid as he claims. Jacob took the paper, scanning it. Legal words, most of them meaningless to him. What's it say? It says your deed was registered 3 months before Hawthorne's claim. Legally, that gives you precedence. He's been trying to steal your land with paperwork tricks. This doesn't help with the babies. Maybe it does. Silas's young face was earnest. If we can prove Hawthorne's got a personal grudge against you, the territorial judge might throw out his whole case. Conflict of interest. Jacob looked at Clara. She nodded slowly. It's worth trying. Why are you helping me, deputy? Silas shifted his weight. My pa was a rancher, lost everything to men like Hawthorne, legal thieves in fancy suits. He straightened. I became a deputy to stop that kind of thing. Ain't been doing a good job of it. This is my chance. From inside, Hope let out a wail. Then Faith joined in. Then Grace. Feeding time, Clara said. Jacob, deal with this. I'll handle the girls. She disappeared inside, leaving Jacob alone with the young deputy. There's something else, Silas said quietly. What? The woman who left those babies. I've been asking around. Nobody's seen a stranger come through town. No pregnant woman, no birth, nothing. She was here. The note proves it. I believe you. But if she was here, she came from somewhere. And if she died, Jacob understood. There's a body somewhere. Or a grave. Or someone who knows what happened. Silas mounted his horse. I'm going to keep looking. If we can find out who she was, where she came from, it might help your case. And if you find out she was running from something, someone who wants those babies back. Silas's face was grim. Then we deal with that too. He rode away, leaving Jacob standing in the cold. Inside, the triplets were crying. Jacob went in. Clara had Hope and Faith in her arms, both screaming. Grace was in the cradle, adding her voice to the chaos. Take Grace, Clara said. Her diaper's wet. Jacob lifted his youngest daughter, and the word didn't feel strange anymore. Daughter. His daughter. He changed her diaper, fumbling less than before. She quieted as he worked, watching him with those dark eyes. Your sister's got big lungs, he told her. You're the smart one, ain't you, saving your energy? Grace made a sound that might have been agreement. Jacob? Clara's voice was strained. Faith won't eat. She keeps spitting out the bottle. He finished with Grace and took Faith from Clara. The middle triplet was red-faced, angry, fighting the bottle like it was an enemy. What's wrong with her? I don't know. She was fine this morning. Jacob felt Faith's forehead. Warm, maybe too warm. She's got a fever. Clara's face went pale. Are you sure? Feel her. Clara touched Faith's cheek, and her expression confirmed it. We need Doc Patterson. In this weather, it's snowing again. Then I'll go get him. Jacob, you can't leave. If Hawthorne finds out you left the babies, I ain't leaving my daughter to die. Jacob was already pulling on his coat. Watch them, all three. Don't open the door for anyone but me or the doc. What if it gets worse? He stopped, turned back. Faith was crying weaker now, her energy fading. Keep her warm. Keep trying to feed her. And pray. Clara caught his arm. Be careful. For a moment, something passed between them. Something that had nothing to do with babies, or legal battles, or land disputes. I'll be back, he said. With help. He rode into the storm. The trip to town usually took an hour. In the snow, it took 2. Jacob reached Doc Patterson's house with ice in his beard and fear in his heart. He pounded on the door until it opened. McAllister. Doc Patterson was an old man, gray-haired and weary. What in God's name? One of the babies. Fever. Won't eat. Jacob grabbed his arm. You gotta come. In this storm, I'm too old for... Please. The word scraped out of Jacob's throat, raw and desperate. Please, Doc. I already buried one daughter. I can't do it again. Something shifted in the old doctor's eyes. He remembered. Of course he remembered. He'd been there that night trying to save Sarah, failing to save Emily. Let me get my bag. They rode back together slower than Jacob wanted, the doc's old mare struggling through the drifts. By the time they reached the cabin, Jacob was half frozen and wholly terrified. Clara met them at the door. Thank God. Her fever's getting higher. Doc Patterson moved past her straight to where Faith lay in the cradle. His examination was quick, thorough. His old hands surprisingly gentle. It's croup, he said finally. Common in infants. Dangerous if it's not treated right. Can you help her? I can try. The doc pulled medicines from his bag. Steam will help. We need to keep her warm and breathing moist air. And she needs to eat even if she fights it. She won't take the bottle. Then we'll find another way. Doc Patterson looked at Jacob. This is going to be a long night, McAllister. You ready for that? I've had nothing but long nights since Christmas. Fair enough. The doc mixed something in a bottle, something that smelled sharp and medicinal. Hold her head up, gently now. Jacob held Faith while the doc administered the medicine. She coughed, sputtered, but kept it down. Good. That's good. Doc Patterson sat back, exhaustion in every line of his face. Now we wait. Clara brought coffee. The hours crawled past. Faith's fever climbed, then held, then slowly started to fall. She's tough, the doc said around midnight. Like her father. Jacob looked at him. She ain't my blood. Don't matter. Doc Patterson's eyes were kind. Blood ain't what makes a father. Sarah knew that. She always said you'd be a good daddy when the time came. Sarah talked about me. All the time. Drove me crazy, actually. The old man smiled, remembering. She'd come in for her checkups just bubbling over. Jacob did this, Jacob said that. You were her whole world, McAllister. Jacob's throat closed up. I couldn't save her. Neither could I. Neither could anybody. Doc Patterson put a hand on his shoulder. But you can save these three. You're already doing it. Hawthorne wants to take them. I heard. The doc's face hardened. That man's got no business deciding what happens to children. He's got no heart in him. Will you speak for me at the hearing? Doc Patterson hesitated. Jacob saw it, the fear, the calculation. Hawthorne owned the building where the doc had his practice. Speaking against him meant risk. I delivered your Emily, the doc said finally. Held her in my hands for the 30 seconds she lived. Watched your face when I told you she was gone. He nodded slowly. Yeah, I'll speak for you. Whatever Hawthorne does to me, it's worth it to see those babies stay where they belong. Clara made a small sound, relief and gratitude mixed together. Thank you, Jacob said. Don't thank me yet. One voice ain't enough to beat a man like Hawthorne. Doc Patterson stood, bones creaking. You need more. As many as you can get. I know. Then start asking. Stop hiding on this ranch like a wounded animal. The doc gathered his things. You got 3 daughters who need a future. Fight for it. He left as dawn was breaking. Faith was sleeping peacefully now, her fever broken, her breathing even. Jacob sat beside the cradle, watching all 3 of his girls sleep. Hope, Faith, and Grace. Names given by a dying woman. Promises he intended to keep. Clara sat across from him, dark circles under her eyes. You should go home, he said. Your boys need you. My boys are fine. Mrs. Chen's watching them. She didn't move. I'm not leaving. Clara. Don't. Her voice cracked. Don't tell me to go. I just spent 6 hours thinking one of those babies might die. I'm not leaving until I know they're all okay. Jacob looked at her, really looked. The exhaustion in her face, the fear she'd been hiding, the strength underneath it all. Why? He asked again. Why do you care so much about me and 3 babies that ain't yours? Clara was quiet for a long moment. Because you remind me of my husband, she finally said. Thomas was like you, stubborn, proud, terrible at asking for help. Her voice wavered. He died because he went into that mine when he shouldn't have, trying to save other men, being a hero. I ain't a hero. Yes, you are. She met his eyes. You just don't know it yet. The moment stretched between them fragile and uncertain. Then Hope started crying and the spell broke. "I'll get her," Clara said, standing quickly. Jacob watched her go, something shifting in his chest that he couldn't name. 2 days until the hearing. 2 days to save his family. The next morning, Jacob did something he hadn't done in 10 years. He went to town. Clara stayed with the babies while he rode in nerves tight as wire. The streets of Millbrook were busy, people moving between shops, going about their business. And every single one of them stared at him. Jacob ignored the looks and headed for the general store. Martha Chen looked up when he walked in. Her face went through several expressions: surprise, curiosity, and something like respect. "Jacob McAllister, as I live and breathe." "Mrs. Chen. Heard you found some babies." "I did." "Heard Hawthorne wants to take them." "He does." Martha leaned on her counter, studying him. "Also heard you threatened to shoot him on your porch." "Might have mentioned that possibility." "Good for you." She grinned. "That man's had it coming for years. What can I do for you?" "I need people to speak at my hearing. Character witnesses." "And you want me to be one?" "I'm asking." Martha was quiet for a moment. "My husband came to this territory with nothing. Built this store from scratch. Hawthorne's been trying to buy me out for 5 years. Wants to build some fancy hotel for the railroad men." "I didn't know that." "Most folks don't. I've been fighting him quiet like." She straightened up. "I'll speak for you, Jacob. About time someone stood up to that snake in public." One voice. He needed more. Jacob spent the morning going door to door. Some people refused to see him. Others listened, but wouldn't commit. Fear of Hawthorne ran deep in Millbrook. But some said yes. Old Pete from the livery, who remembered Jacob as a young man back when Sarah was still alive. The Henderson family, whose son Jacob had pulled from a frozen river 6 years ago. Reverend Michaels, who believed in redemption and second chances. By noon, Jacob had 7 people willing to speak for him. Not many, but more than he'd had before. He was heading back to his horse when a voice stopped him cold. "Mr. McAllister." Jacob turned. A woman stood behind him, well-dressed, gray hair pinned up proper. She looked familiar, but he couldn't place her. "Do I know you, ma'am?" "No, but I know you." She stepped closer, lowering her voice. "I'm Eleanor Crane, Judge Hawthorne's sister." Jacob's hand went to his hip where his gun would be if he'd worn it. "I'm not here to cause trouble." Eleanor held up her hands. "I'm here to help. Help. Hawthorne's your brother. He's my brother, not my keeper." Her face was tight with something, anger or shame, Jacob couldn't tell. "What Cornelius is doing to you is wrong. I've told him so. He won't listen." "So what do you want from me?" Eleanor glanced around, nervous. "I want to tell you what he's planning." "Why would you betray your own blood?" "Because those babies deserve better than being pawns in my brother's games." Her voice cracked. "I can't have children, Mr. McAllister. Never could. Do you know what that's like? Watching others hold their babies while your arms stay empty?" Jacob thought of Sarah, of Emily, of the Hollow years after. "Yeah," he said quietly. "I reckon I do." Eleanor nodded, understanding passing between them. "Cornelius wants your land. He's got railroad investors lined up, promises made, money to be gained. The babies are just leverage. If he can take them, he thinks you'll break. Sell to him for nothing." "I won't." "I believe you. Which is why he's got a backup plan." Eleanor leaned closer. "The doctor he's bringing from Helena. He's not a real specialist. He's a man Cornelius pays to sign whatever documents he needs. Commitment papers, incompetency rulings, anything." Jacob felt his blood go cold. "He's gonna try to have me declared insane." "That's the plan. If the character witnesses don't matter, if the hearing doesn't go his way, he'll have Dr. Mercer testify that you're unfit, mentally unstable, dangerous. And then he takes the babies. And then he takes everything. Eleanor pressed a paper into his hand. This is Dr. Mercer's real record. He's been struck from the medical board twice. Once for falsifying records, once for taking bribes. If you can get this to the territorial judge, it might discredit him. Jacob looked at the paper, then at her. Why are you doing this? Because I'm tired of being complicit. Eleanor's eyes were wet. I've looked the other way while my brother destroyed people, ruined families, taken everything they had. I can't do it anymore, not with children involved. If Hawthorne finds out, then I'll deal with that. She stepped back. Good luck, Mr. McAllister. Those babies are blessed to have you. She walked away before he could respond. Jacob stood there, paper in hand, trying to process what had just happened. An ally from the enemy's own camp. Maybe he had a chance after all. He rode home as fast as the snow allowed. Clara met him at the door, relief flooding her face. Thank God. I was worried. I got good news, and strange news. He came inside, checking immediately on the girls. All three were sleeping peaceful and warm. 7 people will speak for me, including Doc Patterson. That's wonderful. There's more. He told her about Eleanor Crane, about Hawthorne's plan, about the corrupt doctor. Clara's face went pale as she listened. He's going to try to have you committed. That's the plan. But Eleanor gave me this. He showed her the paper. Proof that his doctor is a fraud. Will it be enough? I don't know, but it's something. Clara took the paper, reading it carefully. We need to get this to the territorial judge before the hearing. If Hawthorne doesn't know we have it, he'll bring out his fake doctor, and we can expose him. How do we get it to the judge without Hawthorne finding out? I'll take it. Clara looked up at him. Hawthorne's watching you. He's not watching me. I can ride to the territorial courthouse in Cheyenne, get this to the judge directly. That's a 2-day ride, in winter. I've made worse trips. Clara, your boys? My boys will understand. She grabbed his hands, fierce and determined. Jacob, this is your best chance. Maybe your only chance. Let me do this. He looked at her, this woman who'd walked into his life a week ago and turned everything upside down. Why? He asked for the 3rd time. Why risk so much for me? Clara didn't answer right away. When she did, her voice was soft. Because you're worth it. She squeezed his hands. Because those babies are worth it. Because for the first time in 3 years, I feel like I'm doing something that matters. Jacob stood there, her hands in his, words stuck in his throat. Be careful, he finally said. I will. She smiled, soft and sad. Take care of my girls while I'm gone. Your girls? Our girls. Clara corrected herself, then blushed. I mean, the girls. Hope, Faith, and Grace. She left before he could respond, riding out into the winter afternoon. Jacob watched her go until she disappeared over the ridge. Then he went inside to tend to his daughters. The night before the hearing, Jacob couldn't sleep. He sat by the fire, all 3 babies in his arms, watching the flames dance. Clara should have reached Cheyenne by now. Should have delivered the evidence. Should have. But he hadn't heard anything. Couldn't hear anything out here in the middle of nowhere. Tomorrow's gonna change everything, he told the girls. Either I keep you or... He couldn't finish the sentence. Hope stirred her dark eyes opening. She looked at him with that old soul gaze, like she understood everything he wasn't saying. I ain't gonna let them take you. You hear me? Whatever happens tomorrow, whatever it costs, I'm gonna fight. Faith made a sound in her sleep, and Grace yawned, showing toothless gums. 3 lives depending on him. 3 hearts beating against his chest. Jacob remembered the night he'd buried Sarah and Emily. The cold grave, the frozen ground, the emptiness that had swallowed him whole. He'd wanted to die that night. Had thought about it seriously, the rifle in his hands, and nothing left to live for. But he hadn't pulled the trigger. And 10 years later, God or fate or pure dumb luck had dropped 3 babies in his barn. "Maybe that means something," he whispered. "Maybe everything happens for a reason. Or maybe it was all random chaos and meaning was just something people invented to cope with the pain." Either way, he was here now. They were here now, and tomorrow he'd fight for them with everything he had. Jacob closed his eyes, holding his daughters close, and waited for the dawn. Dawn came gray and bitter cold. Jacob dressed the girls in their warmest clothes, wrapping each one in blankets until only their faces showed. Martha Chen had arrived at first light, her face set with determination. "Clara's not back yet," Jacob said. "She'll make it." Martha took Grace from him. "That woman's tougher than she looks." "The hearing starts in 2 hours." "Then we best get moving." The ride to town was silent. Jacob held hope and faith against his chest, their warmth the only thing keeping the fear at bay. Martha rode beside him, Grace secure in her arms. The courthouse was already crowded when they arrived. Jacob pushed through the doors and felt every eye turned toward him. Whispers spread like wildfire. Some faces held sympathy. Most held doubt. Judge Cornelius Hawthorne sat at the front, silver hair gleaming, that rattlesnake smile firmly in place. Beside him sat a thin man with spectacles and a black bag. Dr. Mercer, the fraud Eleanor had warned him about. Sheriff Barrett approached, his face troubled. "Jacob, you need to hand over the babies." "What?" "Just for the hearing. They'll be in the care of Mrs. Patterson while we conduct business." "I ain't letting them out of my sight." "It's procedure." Barrett lowered his voice. "Don't make this harder than it has to be." Jacob looked at his daughters. Hope gazed back at him, those dark eyes trusting. Faith was squirming, picking up on his tension. Grace slept peacefully, unaware. "They stay in this room," Jacob said. "Where I can see them." Barrett hesitated, then nodded. "Mrs. Patterson can hold them in the front row. That's the best I can do." Doc Patterson's wife was a kind-faced woman, gentle as her husband was gruff. She took the babies with experienced hands, settling into a chair where Jacob could see them clearly. "They'll be fine," she whispered. "Focus on winning." Jacob nodded, but his heart was pounding. The territorial judge entered through a side door. Not Hawthorne, a different man, older, with a face like weathered stone. Judge Samuel Whitfield, brought in from Cheyenne for this specific case. Thank God. At least Hawthorne wasn't presiding over his own scheme. "This hearing will come to order," Whitfield announced. "We are here to determine the custody of 3 infant children currently in the care of Jacob McAllister. Judge Hawthorne, you've brought this petition. State your case." Hawthorne stood smooth as silk. "Thank you, Your Honor. This is a simple matter of child welfare. Mr. McAllister is an unmarried man living alone with no experience raising children. He found these infants abandoned on his property and has taken it upon himself to keep them." "Objection," Jacob said, standing. "I didn't take it upon myself. They were left to me." "Mr. McAllister, you'll have your turn to speak." Judge Whitfield's voice was firm, but not unkind. "Continue, Judge Hawthorne." "As I was saying, while Mr. McAllister's intentions may be good, intentions are not enough. These children deserve a stable home with 2 parents. I've already identified several suitable couples in Helena who would welcome them." "Separate them." Jacob couldn't help himself. "They're sisters, triplets." "Triplets are difficult to place together," Hawthorne said smoothly. "Sometimes, for the good of the children, separation is necessary." "That's bull." "Mr. McAllister." Judge Whitfield's gavel came down. "One more outburst, and I'll hold you in contempt." Jacob forced himself to sit, fists clenched. Hawthorne continued. "Furthermore, I have serious concerns about Mr. McAllister's mental state. He's been a recluse for over a decade. He threatened me with a rifle on Christmas morning. I've brought Dr. Mercer from Helena to evaluate him." "Your Honor," Martha Chen stood. "I'd like to speak." "And you are Martha Chen. I own the general store. I've known Jacob McAllister for 20 years. "You'll have your turn, Mrs. Chen." "Judge Hawthorne, do you have witnesses?" I do, Your Honor. I'd like to call Dr. Mercer. The thin man stood adjusting his spectacles. Jacob watched him approach the witness chair, hatred burning in his gut. Dr. Mercer, Hawthorne began, you're a specialist in mental disorders, is that correct? Yes, I've practiced for 15 years. Lies. According to Eleanor's document, he'd been stripped of his license twice. And you've had the opportunity to observe Mr. McAllister. Briefly. But what I saw was concerning. Paranoid behavior aggression, an unhealthy attachment to children that aren't his. Classic signs of a disturbed mind. You examined him? Judge Whitfield asked. I observed him from a distance. That's often more reliable than direct examination. The subject can't hide his true nature. Jacob's jaw clenched so hard his teeth ached. In your professional opinion, Hawthorne said, is Mr. McAllister fit to raise children? Absolutely not. In fact, I'd recommend he be evaluated for commitment to a proper facility. The crowd murmured. Jacob saw Mrs. Patterson hold his daughters a little tighter. Thank you, Dr. Mercer. No further questions. Judge Whitfield turned to Jacob. Mr. McAllister, do you have any questions for this witness? Jacob stood slowly. Just one, Your Honor. He faced Mercer. How many times you been kicked out of the medical profession? Mercer's face went pale. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm talking about the 2 times you lost your license. Once for faking medical records, once for taking bribes. That's a lie. Is it? Jacob reached into his coat. I got documents here that say different. Hawthorne was on his feet. Your Honor, this is outrageous. Mr. McAllister is trying to slander a respected physician with forged papers. They ain't forged. Jacob handed the documents to Judge Whitfield. Got them from someone who knows the truth about your brother's schemes. The word brother hung in the air. Hawthorne's face went red. My brother. Eleanor Crane, your sister. She's the one who told me about Dr. Mercer, about your plan to have me declared insane so you could take my land. The courtroom erupted. Judge Whitfield banged his gavel repeatedly. Order, order in this court. Hawthorne was sputtering. Eleanor, she couldn't. She did. Jacob felt a grim satisfaction. Seems even your own blood can't stomach what you've become. Judge Whitfield examined the documents, his face darkening. Doctor, Mercer, is any of this true? Mercer was sweating now, eyes darting toward Hawthorne. That is, those records were supposed to be sealed. So they are true. Your Honor, I can explain. Save it. Whitfield's voice was ice. Your testimony is stricken from the record, and I'll be filing a report with the Territorial Medical Board. Mercer fled the witness chair, pushing through the crowd toward the exit. Jacob allowed himself a small breath of relief. One threat down. But Hawthorne wasn't finished. Your Honor, he said, composing himself, regardless of Dr. Mercer's issues. My concerns about Mr. McAllister remain valid. He's a single man with no support system, no experience with children, and a history of violent behavior. I ain't never been violent. You threatened to shoot me. I told you to get off my property. That ain't a threat, that's my right. Judge Whitfield raised his hand. Mr. McAllister, do you have character witnesses? I do, Your Honor. Then let's hear from them. Doc Patterson was first. He walked to the witness chair like a man going to war. State your name and occupation. William Patterson. I'm the only doctor in Millbrook. Been practicing here for 35 years. How do you know Mr. McAllister? I delivered his daughter. Doc Patterson's voice was steady. 10 years ago, his wife died in childbirth. The baby lived for 30 seconds. I put her in his arms, and I watched him hold her while she passed. The courtroom was silent. After that, Doc continued. Jacob shut himself off. Couldn't blame him. That kind of loss. It changes a man. But I've known him since he was 20 years old. He's not violent. He's not crazy. He's just broken. And those babies in that woman's arms, they're putting him back together." "How do you know they're safe with him?" Whitfield asked. "Because I've seen him with them. When one got sick, he rode through a blizzard to get me. Damn near killed himself doing it. He sat up all night holding that baby, talking to her, keeping her warm." Doc Patterson's voice cracked. "That's not a man who'd hurt a child. That's a father." Martha Chen spoke next. "I've known Jacob McAllister for 20 years. He's honest, hard-working, and he keeps to himself. Not a crime in this territory, far as I know." She looked at Hawthorne. "Unlike some folks who use their power to steal land and ruin lives." "Mrs. Chen," Whitfield warned. "I'm just speaking truth, Your Honor. Everyone in this room knows what Judge Hawthorne really wants. It ain't about those babies. It's about the railroad and the money he's promised to investors. Jacob's land is in the way." Hawthorne stood. "Your Honor, I object to these baseless accusations." "They ain't baseless." Old Pete had risen from his seat. "I heard you talking to them railroad men last month. Heard you promise them Jacob's land would be cleared by spring." "You're a deaf old fool." "I'm deaf in one ear, not both, and I heard every word." The crowd was buzzing now. Judge Whitfield banged his gavel again. "Enough. This hearing is about the children, not land disputes. We will stay focused." But Jacob saw something shift in Whitfield's face. Doubt about Hawthorne. Questions forming. More witnesses came. The Hendersons, whose son Jacob had saved. Reverend Michaels, who spoke about redemption and God's plan. Even Silas Brennan, the young deputy, testified to Jacob's character. Through it all, Jacob kept his eyes on his daughters. Hope was awake now, looking around with curious eyes. Faith was fussing hungry, probably. Grace still slept. They needed him, and he needed them. "Your Honor," Hawthorne said when the witnesses finished, "regardless of what these people say, the law is clear. Abandoned children become wards of the territory. Mr. McAllister has no legal claim to them." "The note," Jacob said. "The note left with them." "What about it?" "It asked me to love them, to save them. That's a claim. A note from an anonymous stranger that proves nothing." "Your Honor." A new voice from the back of the courtroom. Everyone turned. Clara Whitmore stood in the doorway, snow dusting her hair, exhaustion carved into her face. But she was smiling. "Mrs. Whitmore." Judge Whitfield frowned. "You're interrupting these proceedings." "I apologize, Your Honor, but I have evidence that couldn't wait." She walked forward, pulling papers from her coat. Jacob's heart hammered. "What evidence?" Whitfield asked. "I've just come from Cheyenne. While I was there, I did some investigating." Clara handed the papers to the judge. "Those are records from the Helena orphanage. 3 babies were born there on December 20th, 4 days before Mr. McAllister found them." The courtroom went silent. The mother was a young woman named Mary Sullivan. She died in childbirth. The father was listed as unknown, but I found a witness who remembered something. "What witness?" "A nurse who worked at the orphanage. She remembered Mary Sullivan because she was unusual, educated, came from a good family back east. She'd been disowned when she got pregnant." Jacob listened, his throat tight. "The nurse said Mary was terrified her babies would be separated, sent to different families. She made the nurse promise that wouldn't happen. But the nurse couldn't keep that promise. The orphanage's policy was to place siblings separately. More families want 1 baby, not 3. "So what happened?" Whitfield asked. "Mary died on December 20th. Her babies were scheduled to be separated on December 26th. But on Christmas Eve, someone took them. The orphanage reported them stolen." "Stolen?" "The nurse." Clara's voice was quiet. "She couldn't let those babies be torn apart, so she took them. Brought them to the nearest ranch she could find in the storm. Left them with a note begging whoever found them to keep them together, to love them." Jacob felt tears burning in his eyes. The nurse's name was Sarah. Sarah Miller. She died of exposure that night trying to make it back to town. Sarah. His wife's name had been Sarah. "Where is this nurse now?" Whitfield asked. "Dead, Your Honor. Deputy Brennan found her body yesterday about 2 miles from Mr. McAllister's ranch. She'd frozen to death in the storm." Clara pulled out one more document. But before she died, she wrote this. "I found it in her belongings." She handed it to the judge. Jacob watched Whitfield read, watched his face change. "It's a letter," Whitfield said slowly, "addressed to whoever finds the babies. It explains everything. Why she took them, where she left them, and who she wanted to raise them." "Who?" Jacob asked, his voice barely a whisper. Whitfield looked up at him. "You, Mr. McAllister. She specifically mentions you by name. Says she'd heard about you in town, about the man who lost his wife and daughter, about how you'd been alone for 10 years. She thought maybe you needed them as much as they needed you." The courtroom was dead silent. "This letter," Whitfield continued, "combined with the note left with the babies, constitutes a clear expression of intent. Sarah Miller wanted these children to go to Jacob McAllister. She died trying to make that happen." Hawthorne was on his feet. "Your Honor, this is absurd. You can't base custody on the ravings of a woman who stole children and died in a blizzard." "I can, Judge Hawthorne, and I will." Whitfield stood. "This court finds that the children known as Hope, Faith, and Grace were intentionally placed in the care of Jacob McAllister by their legal guardian, Sarah Miller. While Miss Miller's methods were unorthodox, her intent was clear, and her motives were pure." Jacob couldn't breathe. "Furthermore," Whitfield continued, "I'm deeply troubled by the evidence presented today about Judge Hawthorne's involvement in this case. The use of a discredited medical witness, the apparent conflict of interest regarding Mr. McAllister's land, and the testimony of multiple citizens about Judge Hawthorne's true motivations all suggest that this petition was filed in bad faith." Hawthorne's face was purple with rage. "You can't do this." "I can, and I am. The petition for custody is denied. Jacob McAllister will retain care of all 3 children. Additionally, I'm recommending a full investigation into Judge Hawthorne's conduct in this and other matters." "This isn't over, McAllister." Hawthorne's voice was a snarl. "I'll appeal. I'll take this to the territorial governor." "You do that," Jacob said quietly. "But while you're fighting your battles, I'll be raising my daughters." The gavel came down. "This hearing is concluded." The crowd erupted. Jacob pushed through to Mrs. Patterson, who was holding all 3 babies, tears streaming down her face. "They're yours," she said. "They're really yours." Jacob gathered them in his arms, all 3 at once, holding them against his chest like they might disappear. "Yeah," he managed. "They are." Clara reached him, her face glowing with exhaustion and triumph. "We did it. You did it. That evidence. That letter. I got lucky. The right person remembered the right thing." She touched his arm. "Sarah Miller died so these babies could have a home. Don't you dare let her sacrifice be for nothing." "I won't." Jacob shifted the baby's making room. "Clara, don't." She held up her hand. "Don't say anything right now. We're both too tired and too emotional. Just go home. Take care of your girls. Come with us." The words were out before he could stop them. Clara froze. "What?" "Come home with us. You and your boys. We got room. And the babies. They need you. I need you." "Jacob, you can't just—" "I know it's sudden. I know we barely know each other. But I watched you walk into my life a week ago and change everything. I watched you fight for my daughters like they were your own. I watched you ride through a blizzard to save us." He swallowed hard. "I ain't asking for anything you're not ready to give. I'm just asking you not to walk away." Clara looked at him, at the 3 babies in his arms, at the future stretching out before them. "My boys," she said softly. "They need stability. They need a family. So do my girls. So do we." Jacob's voice cracked. I've been alone for 10 years, Clara. I forgot what it felt like to have someone standing beside me. Then you showed up and I remembered. I don't want to forget again." The courtroom was clearing out around them. People were staring. Jacob didn't care. "One day at a time," Clara finally said. "That's all I can promise. One day at a time is enough." She smiled, tired and beautiful and real. "Then let's go home." They walked out of the courthouse together into the cold January afternoon. The snow had stopped. Weak sunlight broke through the clouds. Hawthorne stood on the steps watching them. His face was a mask of barely controlled fury. "This isn't over," he called. "You think you've won, but you haven't. I'll find a way. I always find a way." Jacob turned to face him. "You know what I think, Judge. I think you're scared. For the first time in your miserable life, someone stood up to you and won. And you don't know what to do with that. I'll destroy you. Maybe, but not today." Jacob held his daughters closer. "Today, I'm taking my family home, and there ain't nothing you can do to stop me." He walked past Hawthorne Clara beside him, the babies warm against his chest. Behind him, he heard Hawthorne's voice, low and venomous. "Enjoy it while it lasts, McAllister. Winter ain't over yet." Jacob kept walking. He'd won the battle, but something in Hawthorne's voice told him the war was just beginning. The ride home was quiet. Clara sat beside him in the wagon, the babies bundled between them. Her boys would come tomorrow after she'd had time to pack their things. "You're quiet," she said. "Thinking." About Hawthorne. About Sarah Miller. Jacob stared at the road ahead. "She died for my daughters. A woman I never met, never knew existed, gave her life so 3 babies could stay together. She believed in you. Enough to risk everything. How could she believe in me? She didn't know me. She knew enough." Clara's hand found his. "Sometimes that's all it takes. A moment of faith. A leap into the unknown. She saw something in you worth trusting. What if she was wrong?" "She wasn't." Clara squeezed his hand. "I've seen it too. These past few days watching you with those babies. You're not the man you were a week ago, Jacob. You're becoming someone new, someone better." Jacob looked down at his daughters. Hope was awake watching him with those dark, knowing eyes. Faith was sucking on her fist, content. Grace slept peacefully as always. "They saved me," he said quietly. "I thought I was saving them, but it was the other way around." "Maybe it was both." Clara leaned against his shoulder. "Maybe that's how love works. You save each other." They reached the cabin as the sun was setting. Jacob carried the babies inside while Clara started the fire. For the first time in 10 years, the cabin didn't feel empty. It felt like home. "I'll make supper," Clara said. "You feed the girls." Jacob settled into his chair, bottles ready, babies arranged in his arms. He'd gotten better at this, feeding all 3 at once. Still awkward, but it worked. "Your mama's making supper," he told them. "Clara, I mean. She ain't your mama yet, but maybe someday. Would you like that?" Hope made a sound that might have been agreement. "Good. I'd like that too." Faith finished her bottle first and burped loudly. Jacob laughed, a sound that came easier now than it had a week ago. "Good girl. Let it out." Grace woke, blinking sleepily, and accepted her bottle with a yawn. "That's right. You take your time. Ain't no rush." Clara watched from the stove, something soft in her expression. "You're good with them." "Getting better." Jacob shifted Faith to his shoulder, patting her back. "Still got a lot to learn." "We all do." She brought him coffee, sat beside him on the floor, and they watched the fire burn while the babies finished eating. Jacob. "Yeah. What Hawthorne said, about winter not being over. You think he'll try something? I know he will." Jacob's jaw tightened. "Man like that doesn't lose gracefully. He'll come after us again, Probably soon. What do? We stay ready. We watch each other's backs. We don't let him catch us off guard. And if he does something we can't fight. Jacob looked at her, at his daughters, at the life he'd somehow built in the space of a week. Then we fight anyway. Because that's what family does. Clara nodded slowly. One day at a time. One day at a time. Outside, the wind picked up. Snow began to fall again. But inside, the fire burned warm, and 3 babies slept in their father's arms, and for this moment at least, everything was exactly as it should be. Jacob closed his eyes and let himself believe just for tonight that they were safe. Tomorrow would bring new battles, new fears, new threats he couldn't yet imagine. But tomorrow wasn't here yet. Tonight, he had his daughters. He had Clara. He had hope. Real hope. Not the baby, though, her too. But the feeling. The thing he'd thought he'd lost forever when Sarah died. It was back now. Fragile, uncertain, but real. And he'd be damned if he let anyone take it from him again. 3 weeks of peace. Jacob should have known it wouldn't last. Clara and her boys had moved in the day after the hearing. Tommy, 10 years old, serious and quiet. Danny, 7, loud and curious about everything. The cabin felt smaller now, but warmer too. Fuller. The babies were growing fast. 2 months old and already showing personalities. Hope was the watcher, always studying, always thinking. Faith was the fighter, demanding attention with furious cries. Grace was the peacemaker, calm and content, going with the flow. Jacob had learned to tell them apart by sound alone. Hope's cry was thin and plaintive. Faith's was angry and insistent. Grace barely cried at all. "You're getting good at this," Clara said one morning, watching him change Faith's diaper while Hope waited patiently and Grace slept. "Had good teachers." "Tommy wants to help with the horses today." "He old enough?" "He's 10. Same age you were when you started working your father's ranch." Jacob looked toward the window where Tommy was already pulling on his boots. The boy reminded him of himself at that age, eager to prove himself, desperate to be useful. "All right, but he stays close to me." "Thank you." Clara kissed his cheek, quick and casual, like it was something she'd always done. "Danny's going to help me with the babies." "Danny?" he asked. "Said he wants to be a good big brother." Jacob felt something twist in his chest. Big brother. These boys were becoming part of his family, same as his girls. "Tell him I'm proud of him." "Tell him yourself. He needs to hear it from you." She was right. She was always right. Jacob found Danny in the corner, carefully folding baby blankets the way Clara had taught him. "Hey." Danny looked up, nervous. "Did I do something wrong?" "No. Your mama says you want to help with the babies." "They're my sisters now, ain't they?" The question hit Jacob square in the heart. "Yeah, they are." "Then I gotta take care of them. That's what brothers do." Jacob knelt down to the boy's level. "That's exactly right. And I want you to know I'm proud of you for stepping up." Danny's face lit up like sunrise. "Really?" "Really." "Can I hold Hope later?" "She's my favorite. Don't tell Faith and Grace." Jacob laughed. "Your secret's safe with me." The morning passed easy. Jacob worked with Tommy on the horses while Clara and Danny managed the babies. It felt like a rhythm, a dance they were all learning together. Then Silas Brennan rode up his horse, lathered and breathing hard. "Jacob." The tone in his voice killed the peace instantly. "What is it?" "Hawthorne. He's gone to Helena. Came back this morning with papers from the territorial governor." Jacob's blood went cold. "What kind of papers?" "Emergency custody order. Says the original hearing was flawed. Says the babies need to be remanded to territorial care pending a full investigation." "That's impossible. Judge Whitfield ruled in my favor." "Whitfield's been recalled to Cheyenne. Something about improper procedures." Silas's face was grim. Hawthorne's got friends everywhere, Jacob. He's been planning this since the hearing. When are they coming? Tomorrow morning. Sheriff Barrett's been ordered to enforce the order. Barrett won't do it. He doesn't have a choice. It's a direct order from the governor's office. If he refuses, he loses his badge and they send federal marshals instead. Jacob felt the ground shifting under his feet. Everything he'd fought for, everything he'd won, being ripped away by a man with more power and fewer scruples. What do I do? Silas looked around, then lowered his voice. You could run. Take the babies, take Clara and her boys, head for Colorado. I know people there who could hide you. And live as fugitives, always looking over my shoulder. That ain't a life for children. It's better than losing them. Was it Jacob didn't know anymore? Let me think. You've got until tomorrow morning. After that... Silas shook his head. I'm sorry, Jacob. I did everything I could. He rode away, leaving Jacob standing in the cold, with his world crumbling around him. Clara found him an hour later, still standing in the same spot. Jacob, what happened? You're white as a ghost. He told her. Watched her face go from confusion to horror to rage. He can't do this. He already has. Then we fight it. We appeal. We find another judge. There's no time. They're coming tomorrow. Clara grabbed his arms, forcing him to look at her. Then we run, like Silas said. And drag you and your boys into it, make you criminals too. We're already part of this. We became part of it the moment I walked through your door. Clara, no, don't you dare give up now. Her eyes were blazing. Those babies need you. My boys need you. I need you. We didn't come this far to lose everything to a corrupt politician with a grudge. What choice do we have? We make one. Clara's jaw set. We make them see. The whole territory, the whole country if we have to. We show everyone what Hawthorne really is. How? Eleanor Crane. She helped us once. Maybe she'll help us again. She's Hawthorne's sister. He's probably watching her. Then we go to the newspapers, the churches, anyone who'll listen. Clara's grip tightened. Jacob, you taught me something these past weeks. You showed me that one person can make a difference, that love is worth fighting for. Don't stop believing that now. Jacob looked at her, this woman who'd become his partner, his friend, maybe something more. She believed in him. She believed in them. Maybe that was enough. All right, he said. We fight. They worked through the night. Clara wrote letters while Jacob kept watch. To the territorial newspaper in Cheyenne, to church leaders in Helena, to anyone they could think of who might care about 3 babies being torn from their home. Tommy stayed up with them, running messages to Silas, who'd agreed to help, despite the risk to his job. Pa? The word stopped Jacob cold. Tommy had never called him that before. Yeah. I'm scared. Jacob knelt down, putting his hands on the boy's shoulders. Me too. What if they take the babies? They won't. But what if they do? Jacob pulled him close, hugging him the way his own father had hugged him years ago when the world seemed too big and too scary to face. Then we get them back, no matter how long it takes, no matter what it costs. Family doesn't give up on family. Tommy hugged him back, fierce and desperate. I don't want to lose my sisters. You won't, I promise. It was a promise Jacob had no right to make, but he made it anyway. Dawn came too fast. Jacob stood on his porch, rifle in hand, watching the road. Clara was inside with the babies and Danny. Tommy stood beside him, trying to look brave. Go inside, son. I want to stay with you. I know, but I need you to protect your mama and the babies. Can you do that? Tommy's chin lifted. Yes, sir. Good man. The boy went inside. Jacob heard the bar drop across the door behind him. The riders appeared 20 minutes later. Sheriff Barrett in front, his face carved from stone. 4 deputies behind him, and Hawthorne riding at the back, like a king surveying his kingdom. "That's close enough," Jacob called. Barrett raised his hand, stopping the group. "Jacob, don't make this harder than it has to be. I'm not the one making it hard. I've got orders from the territorial governor. The babies are to be remanded to custody pending investigation." Investigation into what Judge Whitfield already ruled. "Whitfield's ruling has been suspended." Barrett's voice was heavy with regret. "I don't like this any more than you do, but the law is the law." "The law." Jacob's laugh was bitter. "You mean Hawthorne's law? The law that says whoever has the most money and the fewest morals gets to do whatever he wants." Hawthorne urged his horse forward. "Mr. McAllister, I'm trying to be reasonable. Hand over the children peacefully, and no one needs to get hurt." "Hurt?" Jacob raised his rifle. "You threatening me?" "I'm promising you. These deputies are authorized to use force if necessary. You really want to die on your porch in front of your woman and her boys? I'd rather die than hand my daughters to you." "Then you're a fool." Hawthorne's smile was cruel. "But I suppose we already knew that." "Wait." A new voice, female, cutting through the tension. Eleanor Crane rode up from behind the group, her face pale but determined. "Eleanor," Hawthorne's voice went cold. "What are you doing here?" "Stopping you from making the biggest mistake of your life." Eleanor dismounted and walked toward her brother. "This has gone too far, Cornelius. These are children, not chess pieces. This is none of your concern. It became my concern when you started using innocent babies to steal a man's land." Eleanor turned to Sheriff Barrett. "Tom, do you know what my brother really wants? It's not the children, it's the McAllister property. He's promised it to the railroad as part of a deal that'll make him rich." "That's a lie." "Is it?" Eleanor pulled a document from her coat. "This is a copy of the contract, signed by you, dated 3 weeks before Christmas. It promises the railroad a clear right-of-way through Jacob McAllister's land by spring." Barrett took the document, reading it slowly. His face darkened. "This says the land will be obtained through legal means as necessary. Which means whatever lie he has to tell, whatever judge he has to bribe, whatever family he has to destroy." Eleanor's voice shook with anger. "I've watched my brother do terrible things for years. I've stayed silent because he's blood, but I won't stay silent anymore. Not about this." Hawthorne's face was purple with rage. "You stupid woman, you've ruined everything." "No, you ruined it yourself. Years ago when you decided your greed was more important than other people's lives." Barrett looked at Hawthorne, then at Jacob, then back at the document in his hands. "Judge Hawthorne, I'm going to need you to come with me." "What?" "This document raises serious questions about your motives in this case. I'm suspending execution of the custody order until a proper investigation can be conducted." "You can't do that. I have authorization from the governor." "And I have evidence that authorization was obtained through fraud." Barrett's voice hardened. "Come with me voluntarily, or I'll place you under arrest." For a long moment, nobody moved. Then Hawthorne smiled. A terrible smile that made Jacob's blood run cold. "You think you've won," he said softly. "But you haven't. There's something you don't know, something that changes everything." "What are you talking about?" "The babies." Hawthorne's eyes glittered. "They're not orphans. Their father is very much alive, and he wants them back." The words hit Jacob like a physical blow. "You're lying." "Am I?" "His name is William Sullivan, Mary's husband. He's been looking for his children since they were stolen from the orphanage." Hawthorne's smile widened. "I found him last week. Brought him to Millbrook yesterday. He's at my house right now, waiting to claim his daughters." "That's impossible. The record said father unknown." "The records were falsified. Mary didn't want her husband to find her. She ran away from him, hid her pregnancy. But he never stopped looking." Eleanor's face had gone white. "Cornelius, if this is another lie—" "It's not. I have documents, marriage certificate, birth certificates, everything." Jacob felt the world tilting. If there was a father, a legal father, someone with actual blood claim to the girls. "I don't believe you," he said, but his voice was weak. "You don't have to believe me. Believe the law." Hawthorne turned his horse. "Sheriff, I'll be at my residence with Mr. Sullivan. When you're ready to do your job properly, you know where to find us." He rode away, leaving chaos behind. Barrett looked at Jacob, helplessness in his eyes. "If there's a father." "He's lying. He has to be." "I'll investigate." "But Jacob, if he's telling the truth." "He's not." But the doubt was there now, eating at him like acid. Clara came out of the cabin, Hope in her arms. "Jacob, what happened?" He couldn't answer her, couldn't find the words. "Jacob." "Hawthorne says there's a father. The baby's real father, alive, wanting them back." Clara's face went pale. "No. He could be lying. But what if he's not?" Jacob looked at Hope, at his daughter, at the baby he'd pulled from death's door on Christmas Eve. She gazed back at him with those dark, knowing eyes. "Then I lose everything." The next hours were agony. Silas investigated while Jacob waited, pacing the cabin like a caged animal. Clara tried to comfort him, but there was no comfort to give. "Even if there is a father," she said, "it doesn't mean you lose them." "Yes, it does. Blood trumps everything in the law's eyes." "Not always. If he abandoned them." "He didn't. According to Hawthorne, Mary ran from him, hid the babies. He's the victim here." "Hawthorne's a liar." "About this, maybe. Maybe not." Jacob stopped pacing, his hands shaking. "Clara, what if he's right? What if somewhere out there a man has been searching for his daughters for months? What right do I have to keep them from him? The right of a father who loves them. I'm not their father, not by blood. Blood doesn't make a father. You taught me that." "I was wrong. Blood makes everything." "No." Clara grabbed him, forced him to face her. "Listen to me. I watched you bring those babies back from the edge of death. I watched you learn to care for them, feed them, love them. I watched you risk your life for them. That's not nothing. That's everything. But if there's a real father, then he can fight for them in court. He can prove he deserves them. But he doesn't get to just show up and take them. Not without a fight." Jacob wanted to believe her. God, he wanted to. But the fear was overwhelming. Silas returned at sundown, his face grim. "It's true. William Sullivan is real. He's at Hawthorne's house right now. I saw him." Jacob's knees went weak. "Tell me everything." "Mary Sullivan married him 3 years ago in Boston. She got pregnant, ran away, came west. He's been looking ever since. Hired detectives, posted notices. When Hawthorne reached out, he came immediately." "What kind of man is he?" "Hard to say. Well-dressed, educated, seemed cold. But that doesn't mean anything." "Why did Mary run?" "Sullivan says she was unstable, prone to fits of irrationality. He claims he loved her, wanted to help her, but she refused treatment." "And you believe him?" "I don't know what to believe." Silas ran a hand through his hair. "But Jacob, he's got documents. Legal documents. Marriage certificate, birth notices, everything. If he takes this to court, he'll win." "Maybe. Probably." Jacob sank into his chair, all the fight draining out of him. "So that's it. I lose them." "Not necessarily." Silas leaned closer. "Something feels wrong about Sullivan. The way he talked about Mary, the look in his eyes when he mentioned the babies. It wasn't love. It was possession. Ownership. That's not enough to stop him." "No, but it might be enough to slow him down." Silas stood. "I'm going to dig deeper. There has to be something. Nobody's story is perfect. And if you don't find anything, then we deal with that when it comes." After Silas left, Clara came to sit beside Jacob. "The babies are asleep," she said. "All 3 of them, in a row like little angels. They won't be mine much longer. You don't know that. Yes, I do. Jacob's voice broke. I knew this was too good to be true. From the moment I found them, I knew God was just setting me up for another fall. Don't say that. Why not? It's true. I lost Sarah and Emily. Now I'm going to lose hope and faith and grace. That's my life. That's my curse. Clara slapped him. The shock of it cut through his despair. He stared at her hand rising to his stinging cheek. Don't you dare, she said, her voice shaking with fury. Don't you dare give up. Those babies need a father who fights, not one who rolls over and dies at the first sign of trouble. This isn't the first sign, it's the end. It's not the end until we say it is. Clara grabbed his face, forcing him to meet her eyes. Jacob McAllister, I have watched you become a father, a real father, the kind of man who would die for his children. You don't get to throw that away because you're scared. I'm not scared. I'm realistic. You're terrified, and that's okay. I'm terrified too. But we don't let fear win. We never let fear win. What if we can't beat this? Then we go down fighting. Together. As a family. Clara's eyes were bright with tears. But we don't surrender. Not ever. Promise me. Jacob looked at her, at this woman who'd become his rock, his partner, his heart. I promise. Good. She kissed him, fierce and desperate. Now get some sleep. Tomorrow we fight. The knock came at midnight. Jacob was up instantly, rifle in hand. Clara grabbed the babies, moving them to the back room. Who's there? It's Eleanor. Let me in. He opened the door. Eleanor Crane stumbled inside, her face bruised, her dress torn. My God, what happened? Cornelius, she was shaking. He found out I helped you. He hit me, said I was a traitor to the family. Come in, sit down. Clara appeared with water and cloth. She started cleaning Eleanor's wounds while Jacob stood guard at the door. There's more, Eleanor said, her voice steadier now. I heard them talking, Cornelius and Sullivan. What did they say? Sullivan doesn't want those babies because he loves them. He wants them because of Mary's inheritance. Inheritance. Mary's parents were wealthy. When they died, they left everything to their grandchildren, held in trust until they turn 18. Eleanor's eyes were dark with anger. Sullivan married Mary for her money. When she ran, she took the babies with her. Without them, he gets nothing. How much money? Enough to make a man do terrible things. Eleanor gripped his arm. Jacob, he's dangerous. More dangerous than Cornelius. I saw it in his eyes. He doesn't see those babies as children. He sees them as assets. What did Mary see? Why did she run? I don't know. But whatever scared her enough to give birth alone, to trust a stranger with her children, it had to be bad. Jacob's mind was racing. We need proof, something concrete. I might be able to get it. There are papers in Cornelius's study, letters, documents. If Sullivan left anything incriminating, you can't go back there. Look what he did to you. He's my brother. He won't kill me. Eleanor's smile was bitter. Besides, someone has to stop him. Might as well be me. Let me come with you. No. You need to stay with the babies. Protect them. She stood steadier now. I'll be back by morning. With proof, God willing. Eleanor. Don't thank me yet. She touched his arm. Just keep those children safe. That's all that matters. She slipped out into the darkness. Jacob stood at the window watching her disappear, praying he hadn't just sent her to her death. Morning brought no word from Eleanor. Jacob waited, paced, watched the road. Nothing. She should be back by now, Clara said, worry etched in her face. I know. What do? We wait. But waiting was torture. Every minute felt like an hour. Every sound made him jump. Then the riders came. Not Barrett this time. Not even Hawthorne. A single man on a black horse riding slow and deliberate toward the cabin. William Sullivan. Jacob walked onto the porch, rifle ready. Sullivan stopped 20 feet away. He was younger than Jacob expected, handsome in a cold sort of way, well-dressed, composed. "Mr. McAllister?" "Sullivan." "I thought we should talk, man to man." "Nothing to talk about." "There's everything to talk about." Sullivan dismounted, hands visible. "Those are my daughters in that cabin. My blood. My family. They were dying when I found them. You weren't there. Because my wife stole them from me, hid them, fled across the country to escape me." Sullivan's voice was smooth, reasonable. "I've been searching for months. Do you know what that's like? Not knowing if your children are alive or dead? I know exactly what that's like. I lost a daughter too." "Then you understand. You understand why I have to take them back." Jacob's grip tightened on the rifle. "What I understand is that Mary was so scared of you she'd rather die in a blizzard than let you near her babies." Sullivan's mask slipped just for a second. Something ugly flashed in his eyes. "Mary was mentally ill. She didn't know what she was doing." "She knew exactly what she was doing. She was protecting her children." "From their own father?" "From you." Sullivan stepped closer. "I'm being reasonable here, McAllister. I'm offering you a chance to walk away clean. Hand over the babies and I'll forget everything. No charges, no trouble. You can go back to your quiet life." "And if I refuse, then I'll destroy you." Sullivan's voice went cold. "I have money, influence, lawyers. I'll drag you through every court in the territory. I'll take your land, your home, everything you have, and in the end, I'll still get my daughters. They're not your daughters anymore. They will always be my daughters, and nothing you do can change that." Jacob looked at this man, this cold and calculating man who saw children as property, and felt something crystallize inside him. "Get off my land." "Excuse me?" "I said get off my land. Come back with papers. Come back with lawyers. Come back with the whole damn territorial government. But right now, in this moment, those babies are mine, and I will kill anyone who tries to take them." Sullivan's face twisted with rage. For a moment, Jacob thought he'd charge. Then the mask came back. The smooth, reasonable facade. "You're making a mistake, McAllister. A very serious mistake. Wouldn't be my first." Sullivan mounted his horse. "This isn't over." "I know." He rode away. Jacob stood on the porch, rifle still raised, until he disappeared over the horizon. Then he went inside and held his daughters one by one, memorizing their faces, their smells, the weight of them in his arms. Whatever came next, he'd be ready. Whatever it cost, he'd pay it. These were his children, and no one was taking them away. Eleanor returned at noon. She stumbled through the door, clutching a leather satchel, her face pale but triumphant. "I got it," she gasped. "I got everything." Jacob caught her as she swayed. "Easy. Sit down." "No time." Eleanor pushed the satchel into his hands. "Letters, from Sullivan to Cornelius. They've been planning this for months, since before Mary even died." "What do you mean before?" "Sullivan knew where Mary was. He tracked her to the Helena orphanage weeks before she gave birth. He didn't come for her because he wanted her dead." Clara made a sound of horror. "He let her die. Worse. He paid someone at the orphanage to make sure she didn't survive the birth." Eleanor's voice shook. "There's a letter in there, from a nurse named Agnes Polk. She confessed everything to Cornelius, tried to blackmail him. He had her killed." Jacob felt sick. He murdered Mary. As good as. And Agnes Polk. And probably Sarah Miller too, though there's no proof of that. Eleanor gripped his arm. "Jacob Sullivan is a monster. He married Mary for her money. He killed her for her money. and now he wants those babies for their inheritance. Nothing else. We need to get this to Barrett. There's more. Eleanor's face was grave. Sullivan's leaving tonight. He's taking the babies to Boston where he has lawyers and judges in his pocket. If he gets them out of the territory, you'll never see them again. He can't take them. There hasn't been a ruling. He doesn't need a ruling. He has Cornelius's men. They're planning to come here at sundown, take the babies by force, and be on the midnight train before anyone knows what happened. Jacob's blood turned to ice. How many men? 6, maybe more. Against me. Against us. Clara stood, her jaw set. I'm not leaving. Clara, don't. Those are my daughters too. I'll die before I let that man touch them. And my boys. Tommy's old enough to handle a rifle. Danny can hide with the babies. Clara's eyes were fierce. We fight. Together. Jacob looked at her, at Eleanor, at the satchel, full of evidence that could save his family. All right, he said. Let's get ready. The next hours were a blur of preparation. Jacob sent Silas to Barrett with copies of the letters. If anything happened to them, at least the evidence would survive. Tommy took up position at the window rifle in his small hands, looking older than his 10 years. You don't have to do this, Jacob told him. Yeah, I do. Tommy's voice was steady. You're my pa now. Those babies are my sisters. I ain't gonna hide while my family's in danger. Jacob put his hand on the boy's shoulder. Your real pa would be proud of you. I know. Tommy's eyes were wet, but his hands were steady on the rifle. He'd want me to protect our family, just like you do. Clara had barricaded the back room where Danny waited with the babies. She'd given him one simple instruction: if anyone but her or Jacob came through that door, he was to climb out the window and run. I won't leave them, Danny had protested. You will if I tell you to. Clara's voice was gentle but firm. Sometimes the bravest thing is to run and get help. Understand? Danny nodded, tears streaming down his face. Good boy. I love you. I love you too, Mama. Now Clara stood beside Jacob, a shotgun in her hands, looking like a warrior queen from some ancient story. I never thanked you, Jacob said. For what? For walking into my life. For staying when any sane person would have run. He touched her face. For loving my daughters like they were your own. They are my own. Clara covered his hand with hers. And you're my man. Whatever happens tonight, I want you to know that. Clara. I love you, Jacob McAllister. I've loved you since the moment I saw you holding those babies like they were the most precious things in the world. Her voice cracked. Win or lose, live or die. I needed you to know that. Jacob kissed her, deep and desperate, pouring everything he couldn't say into that one moment. I love you too, he said when they broke apart. And we're gonna win. We're gonna keep our family together. Promise. Promise. The sun touched the horizon. They were coming. Jacob heard them before he saw them. Horses. Multiple horses. Coming fast. Positions, he called. Clara moved to the side window. Tommy stayed at the front. Eleanor crouched near the back door with a pistol she'd taken from Hawthorne's study. Jacob stepped onto the porch. 6 riders, just like Eleanor said. Sullivan in the lead, Hawthorne beside him. 4 hired guns bringing up the rear. McAllister? Sullivan reined up, that cold smile on his face. I gave you a chance to do this peacefully. And I told you to go to hell. So you did. Sullivan nodded to his men. Take the children. Kill anyone who resists. I wouldn't do that if I were you. A new voice, coming from behind Sullivan's men. Sheriff Barrett rode out of the darkness, a dozen men behind him. Armed men, town men, Doc Patterson, Old Pete, the Henderson brothers. Even Reverend Michaels looking uncomfortable with a rifle but holding it steady. Tom. Hawthorne's voice was sharp. What is this? This is Justice Judge. Barrett's face was hard. I got some real interesting reading material this afternoon. Letters from you and Mr. Sullivan. Letters about murder, conspiracy, theft. Those letters are forgeries. Funny. They got your handwriting, your seal, and witness testimony to back them up. Barrett nodded toward Eleanor. Your own sister turned state's evidence. It's over, Cornelius. Hawthorne's face went pale. Eleanor. I'm sorry, brother. Eleanor stepped off the porch, standing beside Barrett. Actually, no, I'm not sorry. I should have done this years ago. You've destroyed our family. You destroyed our family. I'm just cleaning up the mess. Sullivan's mask finally cracked. The smooth, reasonable facade shattered, revealing the monster underneath. This doesn't change anything. Those are my children, my blood. The law. The law says you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder. Barrett pulled out handcuffs. William Sullivan, you're coming with me. Like hell I am. Sullivan's hand went for his gun. Fast. Faster than Jacob expected. But Jacob was faster. The shot caught Sullivan in the shoulder, spinning him off his horse. His gun flew into the darkness. Sullivan's hired men reached for their weapons, but Barrett's posse had them covered. 12 guns against 4. Not great odds. Drop them, Barrett commanded. Now. One by one the hired guns surrendered. Jacob walked down from the porch, rifle still raised, and stood over Sullivan. The man was clutching his shoulder, blood seeping through his fingers. But his eyes were still calculating, still scheming. You can't do this, Sullivan hissed. I have rights. I have lawyers. You'll rot in prison. Jacob crouched down, getting close to Sullivan's face. You murdered Mary. You murdered Agnes Polk. You were gonna murder me and my family. There ain't a lawyer in the world who can save you from that. She was my wife. They're my children. They were never yours, not really. Jacob stood. Take him, Sheriff. Barrett's men hauled Sullivan to his feet. This isn't over, Sullivan spat. I'll get out. I'll come back. Shut up. Barrett silenced him with a look. Judge Hawthorne, you're under arrest too. Hawthorne hadn't moved. He sat on his horse, staring at his sister, at the ruins of everything he'd built. Eleanor, he said softly. Why? Because you forgot what matters. Eleanor's eyes were wet. Power, money, land. That's all you see. You forgot about family. Real family. The kind worth protecting. I was protecting you. Protecting us. No. You were protecting yourself. And destroying everyone else in the process. Barrett's deputies pulled Hawthorne from his horse. He went without resistance, all the fight drained out of him. Take them both to the jail, Barrett ordered. Doc Patterson, see to Sullivan's shoulder. I don't want him dying before trial. I'll patch him up, Doc said grimly. Though I can't say I'll enjoy it. The prisoners were led away. The hired guns followed hands bound. Jacob stood in his yard watching them go, unable to believe it was actually over. Then Clara was there, throwing her arms around him. We did it. Jacob, we did it. We did. He held her tight, feeling her tears soak through his shirt. It's over. Is it really? Yeah. He pulled back, looking into her eyes. It really is. Tommy came running out of the cabin. Papa, we won. Jacob caught him, lifting him up, hugging him fierce. Yeah, son, we won. Danny appeared next, leading the way for Eleanor, who carried all 3 babies in her arms. They slept through the whole thing, Eleanor said, wonder in her voice. Can you believe it? They're good girls. Jacob took hope from her, cradling his daughter against his chest. They knew their pa would keep them safe. Clara took Faith and Grace, one in each arm. Their mama helped too. Their mama was amazing. Jacob kissed her forehead. Their whole family was amazing. Barrett rode back up, dismounting slowly. His face was tired but satisfied. It's gonna be a long few months. Trials, testimony, paperwork. You'll need to be available. I ain't going anywhere. Good. Barrett looked at the cabin at the family gathered on the porch. You did something special here, Jacob. Built something real out of nothing but love and stubbornness. Couldn't have done it without help. That's what community's for. Barrett mounted up again. Get some rest. You earned it. He rode away into the darkness. Jacob stood there surrounded by his family and felt something he hadn't felt in over a decade. Peace. Real, honest-to-God peace. Let's go inside, Clara said softly. It's cold out here. In a minute. Jacob looked up at the stars bright and cold in the winter sky. I just want to remember this. This feeling. What feeling? Like everything's finally where it's supposed to be. He looked at her, at his daughters, at his sons. Like I finally have a home again. Clara leaned against him, faith and grace secure in her arms. You do have a home. We all do. Right here. I love you. I love you too. She smiled, tired and beautiful. Now let's go inside before these babies freeze. Jacob laughed. A real laugh full of joy and relief and hope. Yes, ma'am. They went inside together. The cabin was warm, the fire still burning from before. Jacob and Clara put the babies in their cradles side by side, while Tommy and Danny watched with protective eyes. They're really ours now, Danny asked. Forever. Forever, Jacob confirmed. Nobody's ever taking them away again. Good. Danny yawned, exhaustion finally catching up with him. I'm tired, Mama. I know, baby. Let's get you to bed. Clara took the boys to their room, while Jacob sat by the fire watching his daughters sleep. Hope, faith, grace. 3 lives that had appeared in his barn on Christmas Eve, changing everything he thought he knew about himself. You saved me, he told them softly. All 3 of you. You brought me back from the dead. Hope stirred her dark eyes opening. She looked at him with that old soul gaze, like she understood every word. I'm going to spend the rest of my life making sure you know how much you're loved. All 3 of you. Every single day. Hope made a small sound, almost like agreement, and closed her eyes again. Clara came back, settling into the chair beside him. Boys are asleep, out like lights. They were brave today, both of them. They take after their new pa. They take after their mama. She's the brave one. Clara took his hand, lacing her fingers through his. Jacob. Yeah. What happens now? Now. He thought about it. Now we live. We raise our kids. We build something good. That's it. That's everything. He squeezed her hand. I spent 10 years thinking life was over. Turns out it was just waiting to begin. That's beautiful. It's true. He turned to face her. Clara, I want to do this right. You and me, the kids, all of us. What do you mean? I mean... He took a breath. I mean, I want to marry you. If you'll have me. Clara's eyes went wide. Jacob, I know it's fast. I know we've only known each other a few weeks, but I've lived enough life to know when something's real, and this is real. You and me, our family. It's the realest thing I've ever known. Are you sure? I've never been more sure of anything. He brought her hand to his lips. Marry me, Clara. Let's make this official. Tears were streaming down her face now. Yes. God, yes. Of course I'll marry you. He kissed her gentle and sweet, sealing the promise. We'll do it in spring, he said. When the snow melts, the whole town can come. The whole town will want to come. After tonight, you're a hero. I ain't a hero. I'm just a man who got lucky. Lucky. Lucky that someone left 3 babies in my barn. Lucky that a beautiful widow woman knocked on my door. Lucky that God or fate or whatever's out there gave me a second chance. He pulled her close. Luckiest man alive. Eleanor appeared in the doorway, her coat on. I should go. Let you all rest. Where will you go? Clara asked. You can't go back to Hawthorne's house. Martha Chen offered me a room, at least until I figure out what's next. You could stay here, Jacob said. We got room. Eleanor smiled, tired but grateful. That's kind, but I need to find my own way now. Figure out who I am when I'm not just Cornelius Hawthorne's sister. You're a hero. That's who you are. I'm not. I'm just someone who finally did the right thing. She pulled on her gloves. Take care of those babies, Jacob. Take care of your family. I will. Eleanor slipped out into the night. Clara leaned against Jacob's shoulder. She's gonna be okay. Yeah, she is. We all are. Yeah. Jacob put his arm around her, holding her close. We all are. They sat there in the firelight, watching their daughters sleep, listening to the quiet sounds of their sons in the next room. A family. A real family. Built from tragedy and hope and stubborn, relentless love. The winter would pass. Spring would come. There would be trials and testimony and all the mess that justice required. But tonight, none of that mattered. Tonight, there was only this: warmth and safety and belonging. Jacob McAllister had found his way home. The wedding took place on the first day of April. The whole town came just like Clara predicted. They packed into the little church, spilling out onto the steps, filling the street. Jacob stood at the altar, uncomfortable in a borrowed suit, watching Clara walk toward him on Doc Patterson's arm. She was beautiful in white, the dress Martha Chen had made for her, flowers in her hair. Behind her came Tommy and Danny carrying the rings, and behind them Eleanor Crane holding all three babies: Hope, Faith, Grace. 4 months old now, bright-eyed and curious, dressed in matching gowns that had taken Martha a week to sew. Dearly beloved. Reverend Michaels began. We are gathered here today. Jacob barely heard the words. He was looking at Clara, at the love in her eyes, at the future stretching out before them. Do you, Jacob McAllister, take this woman to be your lawfully wedded wife? I do. Do you, Clara Whitmore, take this man to be your lawfully wedded husband? I do. Then by the power vested in me, I now pronounce you man and wife. You may kiss the bride. Jacob kissed her while the church erupted in cheers. They walked out together, husband and wife, into the spring sunshine. The townspeople threw rice and flower petals. Someone started playing a fiddle. How do you feel? Clara asked, laughing. Like the luckiest man in Wyoming territory. Just Wyoming. The luckiest man alive. He pulled her close. Now and forever. Eleanor brought the babies over. Hope reached for Jacob immediately, her small arms stretching toward him. She knows her daddy, Eleanor said. She's always known. Jacob took Hope, settling her against his chest. From the very first night. Clara took Faith and Grace. Our girls. Our beautiful girls. Our family. Tommy appeared beside them, Danny right behind. All of us. Jacob looked at them. His wife, his sons, his daughters, the life he'd never thought he'd have. All of us, he agreed. Now and forever. The celebration lasted all day. Food and music and dancing, stories and laughter and joy. When night fell, Jacob and Clara took their family home. The cabin had changed in the months since Christmas. Clara's touch was everywhere now. Curtains in the windows, flowers on the table, the sounds of children filling every room. They put the babies to bed first, all three in a row, just like always. Good night, Hope. Jacob kissed her forehead. Good night, Faith. Good night, Grace. Good night, my darlings, Clara whispered. Dream sweet dreams. Tommy and Danny went next, exhausted from the day's excitement. Night, Pa. Tommy hugged him tight. Night, Ma. Good night, son, both of you. Finally, Jacob and Clara were alone. They stood on the porch, looking out at the land, at the stars, at the life they'd built. Do you remember the night I found them? Jacob asked. Christmas Eve. You thought your life was over. It was. Everything I'd known, everything I'd been. It was all dead. He took her hand. Then 3 babies showed up in my barn, and everything changed. They saved you. They did. But so did you. So did your boys. So did everyone who stood by us when we needed help." He turned to face her. "I was dead inside, Clara. For 10 years I was just going through the motions, waiting to die. And now I'm alive, really alive, for the first time since Sarah and Emily." He pulled her close. "I'm grateful, every single day, for you, for them, for all of it." "I'm grateful too." Clara rested her head on his chest. "I thought I knew what family meant, thought I knew what love was. Then you came along and showed me I didn't know anything. We showed each other. We did." She looked up at him. "Jacob." "Yeah. Thank you." "For what?" "For fighting. For not giving up. For believing that love was worth the risk." Her eyes were bright with tears. "Thank you for being the man those babies needed. The man we all needed." "I'm just me, nothing special." "You're everything special." She kissed him softly. "You're my husband, my partner, my home. And you're mine." They stood there as the stars wheeled overhead, holding each other, grateful for every moment they had. Inside, their daughters slept peacefully. Their sons dreamed of the life ahead. And Jacob McAllister, the man who'd buried his heart with his first wife and daughter, finally understood. Love didn't die. It waited. It waited in empty barns and desperate notes, in crying babies and stubborn widows, in small acts of kindness and great leaps of faith. It waited until you were ready to try again. And when you finally did, it was worth everything. Every tear, every fear, every moment of doubt. Because love was the only thing that lasted. The only thing that mattered. Family was the only treasure worth fighting for. Jacob had learned that lesson the hard way. But he'd learned it. And he'd never forget it again. He led Clara inside, closing the door against the night. Their life together was just beginning. And it was going to be magnificent. Because Jacob McAllister had finally found what he'd lost all those years ago. Hope, faith, grace, and love enough to last a lifetime.